YouTube? It's Andrew with All Things Fantasy, and today I'm bringing you episode 5 of my draft guide series, and today we'll be talking about defenses. Before we get into today's video, something to keep in mind about defenses is that defenses can vary. They're not very consistent in the NFL and for fantasy, and I just want you to keep that in mind. They're very situational week to week. Some defenses will have a great matchup a certain week, and they'll be the defense to that you really don't want to pick up on your team, and they might be favored over a really strong defense. So just kind of keep that in mind. But that's more of kind of a daily fantasy thing. And today obviously this is a season long fantasy series and video. So I'm just gonna kind of break down the top defenses, overall, and in my opinion, the best defenses out there. We're gonna give you the most points throughout the season. But that's just something to keep in the back of your head, and as we go through this video. So my top 15 defenses in 2016. Like I said, I'm into the top half defenses. So we have number one. So these top five are the defenses that you really want to try to get on your team. These five defenses are pretty solid and are going to produce a good amount of points throughout the season for you. So number one, you got the Seahawks. They had really high expectations last year and I think a lot of people expect them to be the number one defense last year, and they weren't. They still put up good numbers, but I think people expected them to kill it like they did 2 seasons ago, but they still put up a good performance. But they're my number one ranked this year. Obviously, they had a tough start last year, but I think they're back on track, and they're gonna have another great season. Two of the Texans, also another team that got off to a rough start last year. A lot of people were really wondering what was going on with the Texans defense, and then they started to pick it up at the second half of the season and started posting some big games. So I really like them as well as the number 2 spot. And then the 3, the Chiefs. The Chiefs were the D that I picked up, and they just started killing it, last season, second half, putting up some really good games, giving me some really solid points. They're really reliable, to put up a good amount of points every week, and I don't expect anything to change. I don't expect anything to change with that. I really think that they're gonna have another great season, and they're my number 3. And then the 4, the Panthers. ESPN had them ranked 2. I moved them down a little bit. But obviously the Panthers, one of the top defenses last year, had some really good games. And like I said, any one of these defenses on this list are defenses you want to have on your team. And then number 5, the Broncos. Again, another team who I think really kind of surprised some people with how good their defense was playing. Obviously, a lot of people make the argument that their defense all year was literally what kind of won them the Super Bowl in the end, and hadn't been, helped them to have such a great season because maybe their offense wasn't, producing, like how their offenses were, and their defense really held it down. So these 5 defenses are definitely defenses that I'm looking to put on my team this year. And I'll get into later when I get into my the draft strategy video and my mock draft videos. When you want to draft a defense. My 6 through 10. So these defenses should be the bottom half of your league. You really shouldn't even be concerned with the top 11 through 15 defenses. So just gotta keep that in mind. If you don't get one of the top 5, you want to get one of these defenses. So it's number 6. We got the Bengals. Honestly, I would say the Bengals and the Cardinals are still pretty up there. If I'd say you just miss out on the Broncos or the Panthers or something, and you end up getting the Cardinals, the Bengals, that's still not a big loss. These defenses played pretty well last year, and honestly, I'm a big fan of the Cardinals defense. But yeah, number 6, Bengals. defense wasn't bad last year. Let's see, yeah, ESPN had him ranked 5. I moved him down, but like I said, any one of these defenses are good to have. And number 7, the Cardinals. Yeah, like they had some big games last year at the end of the season, and I'm a huge like Cardinals fan now. Like I'm not to like fan, but like I don't know, I'm just really, really big on the Cardinals. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Like I've been loving them. Like they've been and why do I say that? Because they're producing fantasy points left and right, right? Like my receivers were putting up good fantasy points. The running back putting up good fantasy points, and now their defense is putting like, that's the perfect trifecta. Like you look at a team like the Steelers, and the Steelers, they have wide receivers that put up big numbers, running back that puts up big numbers, but their defense doesn't. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger puts up some good numbers, but and so does the Cardinals QB. So um, the Jets, the Jets is a defense that I had last year, and I ended up getting rid of them. They just weren't crazy consistent last year. Like I said, that's what you're gonna get. Um, I think it's really important. I think for defenses like in season-long leagues, it's really important to be active in um, picking up and dropping defenses. I hope like when we get into the season that I'm gonna be I'm gonna try to give a video, put up a video every week of the defenses to pick up, defenses to drop, and like the good matchups for the week to kind of help you guys out in what defense to be targeting, because you don't want to stick to a defense all season. I mean, maybe like if you have like obviously like the Seahawks, the Texans, if you have a top defense, maybe, but nothing's wrong with you have a great matchup one week, or there's a bye week, and moving moving the other defense to the bench, having defense for a week, might not be the worst strategy, just because of matchups. Because obviously the Seahawks are gonna have some tough matchups some weeks, same with the Texans, and there's gonna be some weeks where they're just expected to have really low, to have score really low points, and they most likely will, unless obviously like the hardest thing to predict in fantasy is a defensive touchdown. Like there's really no way to predict it. It's the hardest thing to predict, and that's how a lot of these teams will score some big points some week, and so that's just like something you can't account for. Um, which was why it's was something that makes fantasy so fun, and which makes choosing defense so interesting. But let's keep going. 9, you got the Packers. Yeah, I don't know, the Packers, like obviously you think of Clay Matthews and think of Packers defense, but like if in terms of their numbers, like the numbers weren't anything outstanding last year, but they were solid enough to put them on this list. Like if you look at some defenses numbers last year, like if you go to like the bottom half of the NFL, like there were some bad defenses, like putting up like negative points in games, and just like a lot of either it's like single digits or like negative points. It's like there were some bad defenses out there. So any defense that's just kind of solid, at least put you in your positive numbers, really kind of made this list. Like once you get out of those top defenses, you really kind of settle for defenses that just kind of give you some points. And same thing with the Vikings. Another team that wasn't outstanding, but kind of got the job done when it comes to just giving you points. And like I said, so that was the top 10, and that's where you kind of want to at least get one of these defenses, for your team when you're drafting. And then my 11 through 15, these are defenses that like if you have to, if like all these defenses get taken, you need to get a defense. You're desperate. You definitely want to choose one of these guys. Anybody outside of these defenses is you're really kind of digging deep to try to. You're asking a lot, to ask a bottom half defense to produce, pretty good for you. So, but I don't think you'll have a problem with that. You should end up getting one, at the very least one of these defenses if you miss out on a top 10 defense. But yeah, so yeah, like 11 the Raiders. Actually, honestly, like their defense, yeah, they ESPN had them at 10. I moved them down, but yeah, like they very well could have been a 10 spot. Like them and the Vikings are pretty close. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't a huge. I wasn't really big on them. Um, but yeah, like I said, like all these defenses are really defenses that kind of just get the job done, but they're nothing like to stand out. 12 the Patriots, I had them last year. I dropped them like right away after they had some bad weeks, and they just wasn't giving me that like enough points. 13 the Colts, same thing. They're just kind of just get the job done. Nothing too special. And then 14 and 15 the Rams and the Bills. I want to talk about them for a little bit. These are two teams who had like really big expectations for defense. Like a lot of teams expected these defenses to be top defenses in the NFL. Especially like last year, the Bills were really expected to crush it last year and be a great defense, and they didn't. Um, so that's why they're low on this list, and they are low on ESPN's list too. But I think these teams are two teams that could potentially have big seasons, and you might see some people in your draft them like you know instead of like maybe like a Cardinals or a Bengals. They might draft one of the Rams or the Bills over them, and I think that's a mistake. But if you're left in a situation where you're all of like the top nine 8 or 9 defenses are gone, maybe you might take a risk on the Rams and the Bills, and maybe they might surprise you this season. I definitely think these are kind of like the two defenses that have a ton of upside. So that's my one like little sleeper pick for the defenses. Yeah, I've tried to do that in every video so far. I'm not sure if I've done it a ton, but I've tried to do that to kind of give you guys some uh, little inside information that I have. I guess I don't know, or just kind of like some feeler picks that I have. But yeah, so that's my top 15. Let's on it like we do every video now. We're gonna go to ESPN's um, rankings, and here we go. Like I said, yeah, Seattle. So I was looking at their power ranks, and that was interesting to me. That was off of last season's stats, and then obviously you have like the Broncos were number one. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Broncos number one, and but like these are all priorities. I'm pretty sure these are all projections for next season. So that's kind of surprising they dropped the Broncos so low. But obviously, look at the crazy strong first half and then pretty weak second half. So that makes sense. And the Seahawks were like the exact opposite. I mean, they were just spotty. They were like every other week, nothing crazy. And then they kind of were actually they were pretty consistent. Oh, who was I thinking of? The Texans, yeah, the Texans. The exact terrible first half, strong second half. Kind of the exact opposite there. I mentioned the Bengals before. They were pretty quiet, kind of went about their business and had some decent games. They took advantage of like the bad teams, right? The Rams, or yeah, the Rams. I was about to say the Cavs, the Browns. They took advantage of the Niners. They took advantage of the bad teams when they had good matchups, and their defense thrived. And that's it. I don't want to obviously the Steelers are a good team. I think in my opinion. Put 11 against them. Texans, they were struggling that shit. They put up 10 against them. So like I said, it's a matchup thing, especially for like a team like the Bengals. It's a matchup thing. Like obviously, if you ask me like, oh, against the Ravens, I would say, that's probably a good matchup. But and then again, they only put up 1 point. But like I said, it's a lot about touchdowns. Like look at the Rams. Like they would have only had 10 points, but they had that touchdown, so they got 16. They had 3 interceptions against the Niners. Like the 3 interceptions against the Steelers. That's why 3 interceptions against the Rams too. Like that's why they did so well in those games. But interceptions is more like a matchup thing, and touchdowns is more of just like a luck thing. Same with fumbles. Fumbles like a matchup thing. And it's hard. It's a little bit easier to predict. Like let's say You got, Ryan and the Broncos going against a weak offense. Like, okay, let's take an example like Chicago. In my opinion, the weak offense, even though they're my hometown team. And they got an interception and a recover. Even though they only scored 7 points, like that, you can still kind of predict that they're probably going to get a fumble recovery or an interception just because of that matchup, and because they're going against Jay Cutler, who's known to kind of mess up every once in a while. Look at Cleveland, same thing. Obviously, they got lucky and they scored it. Well, I don't know if we call it lucky, but obviously, with some good fortune, they got a touchdown with that game. So then their points went up by a lot. So just something to kind of look for. But yeah, so here's the bottom half defenses, and you kind of get past the 15 spot, and definitely these are the big no-nos. I think it should be pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to draft the Browns defense. No, look at all these negatives. Yeah, they had a 14-pointer and a 19-pointer against two pretty bad teams, the Niners and the Tennessee Titans. But that's like I was saying, the matchup thing. But for the most part, they had a bunch of negatives. You see a bunch of low single digits. The power rank was 30, average 3.7 points. That's not good. It's not good when you look at all these teams who are averaging close to 10 points. That's a good average. Around a 10-point average is a good average. That's what you want to shoot for. Yeah, 9 point. Yeah, the Cardinals. Look at some of these huge games, and they were still pretty consistent. 8s are not bad. I'm expecting big things out of the Cardinals. But yeah, so wow, it's kind of just gotten pretty long just since I've been on this list. Okay, so that has been my top 15. That's been episode 5 of my draft guide series. Top 15 defenses 2016. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.